Hello, friends. Robert Bevan here, author of the Caverns Creatures series of comedy, fantasy novels, and short stories. With me is Sam West, and today we are talking about the spell Conjure Fey. I can't, I cannot believe there are still conjure and summon spells we haven't yet talked about.
The list doesn't end. The more we do these, the more I'm like, oh yeah, this one is another option that you're technically allowed to take. Although this one is definitely worse than the lower level options. That's generally the case for like Conjure Elemental and Conjure Fey.
Hmm. All right,
This is
let's get into it.
sixth level Conjuration spell. It takes a minute to cast, so that's upsetting. 90-foot cast range, verbal somatic components, an hour-long concentration, Conjuration School of Magic. You summon a Fey creature of challenge rating 6 or lower. That's a large range. That is kind of relevant for later printings of things that have come out since the spell was made. So yeah, you summon a Fey creature of CR 6 or lower, or a Fey spirit that takes the form of a beast of challenge rating 6 or lower. So this basically is any beast or Fey CR 6 or lower. It appears in an occupied space you can see within range. It disappears when it drops to 0 hit points or when the spell ends. The Fey creature is friendly to you and your companions for the duration. Roll initiative for it, which it has its own turns. It obeys any verbal commands that you issue to it. No action required by you, as long as they don't violate its alignment. If you don't issue any commands to the Fey creature, it defends itself from hostile creatures but otherwise takes no actions. If your concentration is broken, the Fey creature doesn't disappear. Instead, you lose control of the Fey creature. It becomes hostile towards you and your companions, and it might attack. An uncontrolled Fey creature can't be dismissed by you. It disappears 1 hour after you summon it. The GM has their statistics, which is only true like 1% of the time. At higher levels, you can increase the CR by 1 for each slot above 6. So any beast CR 6 or lower, slash Fey any 6 or lower, that may turn and kill you if things go badly. I think that's fun.
Um, sure. So, one interesting thing, this is a Druid Warlock spell. How many of those do you ever get?
It's a great point. That's a unique combination. I genuinely assumed this was a wizard spell, but I hadn't even checked. Yeah, this is unique in the fashion that it's only for these two classes, and I think it fits both of them great. I'm glad we got this kind of unique combination.
Yeah, that said, I mean, I don't know about warlocks, but druids get so much summoning. Like, when are you ever casting this rather than upcasting a lower level conjuration or summoning spell?
I'm not,
No.
generally speaking. That there may be exceptions, so they're like the other summon or conjure spells, excuse me. There are rules for this that I truthfully don't know the answer to that I'm assuming work one way that may not work that way. So whenever I see this, it says you summon a Fey creature of challenge rating 6 or lower or a spirit. I'm assuming you get to pick. I'm assuming you pick the creature of CR 6 or lower to summon into the world. I don't believe you're not picking CR or anything like you do with the other ones. I'm pretty sure you get the creature that you want. I could be wrong though. I couldn't find anything that says otherwise, but consult with the internet and your DM and Jeremy Crawford about these things before you grab this one out the gate. That being said, like, what things are worth summoning of CR6 that are better than summon elemental or summon Fey?
Or conjure woodland beings?
Nothing's better than Conjure Woodland Beings. Turns out 8 of anything is a lot better than 1 of something most of the time. Like, the vast majority of the time. Like, I'll take 8 sprites over any one of these every other week. Especially because, like, the Fae, there was a big, prior to Vol's Guide to Monsters, there was, like, green hags were the top end thing you got with this, and those are CR3. So you're like, not getting the greatest exchange. That being said, Green Hag at least comes with a decent chunk of spells, comes with some at-will invisibility kind of deal. I say decent chunk, I mean, it comes with 3 spells, and they're all cantrips. Okay, so that's not a great example. We have the Annis Hag is one of the new big bad that you can get for this. That's actually CR6. That came in Vol's Guide to Monsters. It's free out on the internet too, because it was one of the promotional things they did. And it comes with an at-will disguise self and a 3 times per day disguise self and fog cloud. And it also has a big old 96 plus 5 crushing hug, which is pretty cool. That's kind of like the option I think you would take this for is a 75 HP, 40 speed Anisag just to crush things with its giant arms. It's a big rocky
Hug.
angry hag.
That's
I don't know. I think it's very
that's
fun.
horrifying. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The hug and the fog cloud, great. When when is the disguise self going to come into play? It's like
Maybe
I
you need to
just
take it into
summoned you.
town with you.
Yeah, I guess it lasts for an hour.
Yeah, so
All right.
it's around.
All right. So it disguises itself to not look like a hag.
Yeah.
Maybe it looks like a beautiful woman, and then you don't mind the hug until you start getting crushed.
Yeah, and then you're taking 90. I think so I don't think disguise self changes your height. And this thing is large, so it's a very large, beautiful woman. We're talking like NBA All Star or the WBA, or whatever the National Women's Basketball Association, that level of height, plus a little bit of extra feet because large is enormous, giving you a crushing hug to kill you. Yeah. I enjoy that fantasy. I think it's very fun.
I'll enjoy that fantasy in a few minutes after we finish recording.
Sure. Listen, there was the Resident Evil woman, Lady Demasutra or whatever, just took the internet by storm. And this can basically be that, except it's a lot less pretty whenever you look at what it actually looks like, which is a horrific old hag creature with claws and bones in its hands. I love Anasags. They're very fun. I think they're one of my favorite hags, and they're just like unapologetically evil. They crush things. They're like mountainous. I think they're sweet. I think they're underused. I think most of what you get in Vol's Guide to Monsters lore and information wise is very useful in a lot of different games. I stand by it's one of, if not the best book Wizards has put out. So yeah, I would highly recommend getting it from there. That's kind of like I said, though, for the sake of Conjure Fey, that's definitely the best option you get. There's like Triceratopses, which have a 48+6. They're a CR5. They have a 48+6 gore attack with trampling charge. They can knock things prone. They're like mammoths, which are mammoths are the better version of the Triceratops. They come with a 40-10+7 stomp and a 48+7 gore with the trampling charge. They're like the upgraded Triceratops. And then after those two, after Mammoth and Anasag, it really steeply goes downhill, especially whenever you're considering this is a 6th level spell slot, which means you're foregoing a creature with 3 attacks. 3 attacks for all of the summon spells, right? That's a big problem for all of these. Like even the Anasag's Hug, I love it dearly, and it can multi-attack with 2 attacks, but 2 is less than 3. And I kind of like 3 attacks most of the time when I can help it. So, you have to kind of want other things it's doing. And any of the single, like the Triceratops Mammoth stuff, their 1 attack with Trampling Charge definitely is going to feel a lot worse, I think, most of the time than 3 attacks on a summoned ally. 8 only going down from there is a bummer. There's like Yeth Hounds, which are really weird. I don't entirely know what they do, but they're also from Vol's Guide to Monsters, I believe. If you want specific things, this gives you those specific things. I think most of the time you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna be happier with Summon Fey. You're gonna be happier with Conjure Woodland Beings. You're gonna be happier with Conjure Minor Elementals.
See, I'm just thinking like if you need something big and heavy, like a Triceratops or a Mammoth, be good. Like if you're so this wall of stone, if you're on the deck of a ship having a fight, then that would not only be helpful for your fight, but it would also weigh down the ship or possibly sink it, or give people trouble moving around it.
Oh, absolutely. It also helps, right? Like the Mammoth comes with 127 hit points. That's not nothing. A Summon Fey upcast to 6th level is looking at 60 hit points. So that's literally half that of quantities. If you want something to take damage, you want something to break down a wall, you want something to sink a ship, yeah, sure, put a Mammoth in the middle of the room. That's going to cause a distraction. It's going to be a big problem for a lot of creatures. It's not going to be power gaming by any stretch, but it's definitely going to be a big, fun, splashy way to spend a 6th level spell slot. This is probably like summoning at its fairest, I think, which, that's probably net healthy for the game to have things that are a little bit worse than Conjure Woodland Beings and Conjure Minor Elementals.
Well, I mean, the other thing is, though, with that many hit points, like, all right, you summon 8 pixies. Amazing, astounding, but 1 fireball could just take them all out in an instant.
Unless they're in 8 different places.
That's true.
Yeah. It's hard to deal with the Conjure stuff versus the Conjure Minor Elemental stuff versus this. Just because, like, if I ever have 1 pixie, I'm like, oh, that's probably still better than a Triceratops because it's so many extra spells. Pixies are kind of a unfair example, but even if we look at, again, lower tier options like sprites knock things unconscious. You get a lot of them. They can turn invisible. They can do a lot of interesting things out of combat, and it's a slower level slot. And if you upcast it, you get more of them. So, like, there's a lot going against this spell as far as really powerful things go. At the same time, maybe you just really want an elephant. Maybe you just really want a killer whale. This gives you an elephant or a killer whale, and that's pretty fine. If this didn't include beasts, it would be summon hag. It's not the end of the world, but it's not the most exciting thing ever. Red caps are neat. They're a little murderous, angry thing with a scythe and a vengeance for killing people. It's only CR3, but it's if you want to have a really angry little red cap at your service, why not?
Maybe you just want a hug.
A really, really crushing hug.
Yeah.
A hug that does like 18d6 damage over 2 rounds.
If you're lonely.
I'm really, really lonely.
Um, yeah, so I mean, I guess like there are some niche options why you might take this, but if you have access to lower level similar things, that upcast, I don't I don't need a hug that bad.
That's fair. I will say one thing I haven't really touched on is this spell kind of exists to represent every single monster in the game's abilities in a relative state. So, for example, if you really need a Sea Hag's Death Glare specifically, you can get a Sea Hag with Death Glare for that purpose. If you want to make this spell more of a toolbox option as something that you have to say, I want the abilities of as many monsters as I can. How do I get that? This is a way to satisfy that fantasy where you can just go into your notes and write down the relative abilities next to the summoned creatures you want to get. So whenever you're in game and you're like, okay, we're confronted with this horrible evil town that's going around hanging a bunch of people and mass murder or whatever, and they're a cult to some evil lich. I need to kill them all simultaneously. I need to be discreet. What options do we have on our character sheets that can do that? Summoning a Sea Hag could be a tool in your toolbox to sort of go further. Even if in combat it's only a CR2 worse version than most of what we're then comparing it to, right? Knowing in your back pocket, like, okay, I can pull out a red cap when I need it. I can pull out a rhinoceros when I need it. I can pull out a giant killer whale to help navigate the oceans with us. That can be useful. Giant sharks as well. They're also fit within the category of just, if you need to sail around the seas, why not go surfing on a giant shark? It's huge. It can carry the whole party as long as everyone straps in. That's a pretty sweet way to explore the world. So as a tool beyond combat, I think there's a lot more merit to just knowing the list, knowing what monsters are at your disposal, and knowing what traits you can value from them to add to your exploration, to add to your sort of, again, more toolbox style approach to it. I think that's where it's going to be at its probably at its best.
All right, you know what? I'm glad you said all that. That puts a new spin on it for me. That's gonna bump up my rating a little bit. And yeah, it actually makes this a little bit more interesting than I had previously given it credit for.
Yeah, I think it. I don't want to say it's like Wish in that it does a lot, like everything, but what Wish
I don't
does
want
in
to say
terms
that
of
either.
what Wish does in terms of spells, as far as this is every spell in the game. This is kind of every beast and fey creature of CR6 or lower in the game. Maybe somebody lost their pet brown bear and you really want to make them think that it's not dead, and then you conjure them a new brown bear for an hour, right? Like, that's the kind of silly gimmicks you can get up to with this at a very low level. And then, on top of that, you can get dryads to the tree strider or whatever. You can get, if you really, really, I mean, you can get dryads with conjure woodland beings, but it's not guaranteed. So I think this has merit to exist. Do you need it in your character sheet if you want to do power gaming stuff? Absolutely not. Is this a option that I would personally love to play with? Absolutely.
You're getting into Bob territory here. So, like, I'm going to collect the reward on that missing brown bear.
Exactly.
Okay. We got a rating.
I think it's still summoning magic. It probably can't go lower than 3. These effects are very powerful, and Anna Sags at a 4 is pretty good. Is it not better than the other summoning effects? I don't think across the board. I think I'm more often than not in combat going to be happier with the same consistent summoned ally that won't turn and kill me if I lose concentration on this, right? So I don't want to necessarily fight an Annis Hag if I get hit by a loose boulder or a loose, like, pebble. So that makes it substantially worse in combat. But as far as the out of combat utility stuff goes for it, I think it's a lot better and a lot more exciting. So I think it still justifies its existence on my sheet. I think 3 is reasonable for
that. Yeah, I don't want to give it any more than that because all the other stuff that you could use instead of this. But yeah, you talked me up from a 2 to a 3.
Nice.
Fun out of combat utility potential.
I just would like to point out the lowest rating we're capable of giving somebody magic currently is a 3. That's how good this effect is generally in D&D. So you really can't ever go wrong. If you see something that summons an ally, the floor on that's going to be very high.
All right. One thing we never really touched on is the 1-minute cast time.
Yeah, so you can't use it like at a fight. You have to use it prior to a fight.
Yeah, so I guess it lasts an hour, so that's not
the
end of the world.
The duration definitely makes that not an issue as much. If it were a minute duration or like a 10-minute duration, this becomes substantially worse. Given that you get an hour of it, you throw it down whenever you're going into the dungeon, you probably get a fight out of the thing that you're looking for with it if you wanted that. If you don't want that, if you just want the hour exploration tool, it also works great for that term. So the cast time isn't that big of an issue.
All right. Well, thank you, Sam, and thank you everyone for joining us. Let us know what you think of Conjure Fey down in the comments. And Anna's hugs and Triceratops. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, informative, or entertaining, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button below. You needn't smash it, a gentle tap will suffice. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to the channel. And make sure you check out the links in the description, where you'll find my Caverns Creatures series of comedy fantasy novels, Sam's full review of the spell, and other fun things.